The grand engineering assembly of the Galactic Federation resembled a kaleidoscope gone wrong. Hundreds of species, each more exotic than the last, filled the ancient amphitheater's crystalline seats. Some floated, others oozed, and a few existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. At the center of it all stood First Engineer Ixaltal, their crystalline appendages glinting under the artificial starlight as they presented the Federation's latest breakthrough in propulsion technology. After 3 centuries of careful calculation, Ixaltal's translator hummed, "We have achieved a 0.3% improvement in fold space efficiency." Their announcement was met with polite clicks and whistles of appreciation, the sort of response one might expect from beings who considered radical innovation to be slightly more dangerous than a supernova. In the very back row, where the artificial gravity was slightly wonky, sat Kira Patel, Earth's representative engineer. She hadn't meant to laugh out loud, really, but the sound escaped before she could stop it, echoing through the chamber like a thunderclap in a library. The assembly fell silent. Thousands of alien eyes, sensory stalks, and quantum probability detectors turned toward her. Ixaltal's crystalline form shifted to a deep purple, the equivalent of a raised eyebrow. Does the human representative find something amusing about 3 centuries of meticulous research? They asked, each word dripping with the kind of disdain usually reserved for particularly stupid asteroid fragments. Kira stood, brushing off her oil-stained coveralls. Not amusing, exactly. Just inefficient. She began making her way down to the presentation floor, leaving a trail of horrified gasps in her wake. "You're approaching the problem from the wrong angle." "Wrong angle?" Ixaltal's translator crackled with indignation. This design was conceived by the finest minds of 17 species, refined through millions of simulations, and validated by the most advanced quantum computers in the galaxy. Yeah, that's the problem. Kira reached the floor, pulling out her beaten-up tablet. "You're overthinking it. Look here." She projected a rough sketch into the air, her quick gestures leaving glowing trails in the holographic display. If you reorganize the fold space manifolds like this and add a bit of turbulence, controlled chaos, basically, you could improve efficiency by at least 15%. The assembly erupted in a cacophony of protests. Several theoretical physicists fainted. A group of probability engineers began frantically checking their calculations, their tentacles tied in knots. "Impossible," Ixaltal declared. "Such an approach would violate at least 7 fundamental laws of physics." "Only if you believe those laws are absolute," Kira grinned. "Sometimes you've got to negotiate with physics a little. Buy at dinner first, you know." "This is preposterous. The human suggests we should flirt with the fundamental forces of the universe." "Well, when you put it that way, it does sound a bit crazy." Kira scratched her head, leaving a smudge of engine grease in her dark hair. "Tell you what, give me 1 standard month and a workshop. I'll build you a prototype that'll make your current engine look like a steam locomotive." The assembly fell so quiet you could hear a photon drop. Ixaltal's crystalline form shifted through several colors before settling on a deep, challenging red. "Very well, human Kira Patel. The Federation accepts your challenge, 1 standard month. If you succeed, humanity will be granted a seat on the High Engineering Council. If you fail," they paused dramatically, "you will acknowledge the superiority of our methodical approach and submit all future human engineering projects for proper century-long review." "Deal." Kira extended her hand, then quickly withdrew it when she remembered most of the assembly viewed physical contact with the same horror as antimatter accidents. "Just one condition. I get to bring my team." "Your team?" "Yeah, the best engineers humanity's got to offer. We call ourselves the Grease Monkeys." As Kira left the assembly hall, already sending messages to her crew, the alien engineers began updating their disaster prevention protocols. They had no way of knowing that they were about to witness either the greatest engineering breakthrough in galactic history or the most spectacular failure since the invention of self-aware toasters. Probably both. The Federation's advanced engineering facility was a marvel of alien architecture and precision. Every surface gleamed with quantum-polished perfection, every tool was calibrated to atomic precision, and every workspace was organized with mathematical elegance. At least it was until the grease monkeys arrived. Delivery for Kira Patel. The announcement echoed through the facility's pristine halls, followed by the sound of repulsor lifts struggling under an unusual load. The assembled alien engineers watched in horror as a battered cargo container, covered in warning labels and what appeared to be hot sauce stains, crashed through the entrance. "Over here." Kira waved from her designated workshop, grinning as her team emerged from behind the container. "Did you bring everything?" Raj, the wrench, Sharma stepped out first, his mechanical arm whirring as he adjusted his tool belt. "Everything but the kitchen sink. Though technically, we did bring parts of one. Never know when you might need good plumbing." Behind him, Dr. Isabella Chaos Theory Rodriguez was already scanning the facility with an array of jury-rigged sensors, her augmented reality display flickering with calculations. "The quantum field density in here is amazing, though they're being way too careful with it. It's like they're afraid to let the particles have any fun." The last member of the team literally fell through the ceiling, landing in a graceful roll. Jun ghost in the machine, Nakamura straightened his gravity-defying hair and adjusted his neural interface goggles. "Security systems updated. They're much happier now that I taught them how to play chess." "You modify our security systems." A Federation security officer materialized, their holographic form flickering with concern. "Modified is such a strong word," Jun smiled. "I just gave them a hobby. They were bored. Do you know how boring it is to watch empty hallways for centuries?" Kira clapped her hands, drawing attention back to the task at hand. "Right. Let's get set up. Raj, start unpacking the good stuff. Isabella, I need quantum field maps. Jun, see if you can make friends with their engineering mainframe." The aliens watched in mounting horror as the humans began transforming their immaculate facility into something that looked more like a cross between a workshop and a mad scientist's laboratory. Tools that definitely weren't regulation were pulled from the cargo container, along with devices that seemed to defy several laws of physics just by existing. "Is that duct tape?" First engineer Ixeltal had appeared, their crystalline form vibrating with barely contained distress. "Universal engineering solution," Raj explained, tossing a roll to Kira. "That and WD-40. If it moves and shouldn't, duct tape. If it doesn't move and should, WD-40. But these are quantum-scale engineering challenges. You cannot possibly intend to use adhesive strips and lubricant on sophisticated fold space manifolds." Isabella looked up from her calculations, her AR display showing what appeared to be a game of quantum Tetris. "Watch us. Sometimes the simplest solutions are the best. Like that time we fixed the Mars colony's atmosphere processor with rubber bands and paper clips." "You did what to a what?" "Oh, that was nothing," Jun called from inside a maintenance shaft, where he definitely wasn't supposed to be. "You should have seen what we did to Jupiter Station's gravity generators with just a toaster and some coffee grounds." The alien engineers were now updating their disaster predictions from probable to inevitable. Several had begun drafting their resignations. One particularly sensitive quantum theorist had to be led away after watching Raj calibrate a precision instrument by hitting it with a wrench until it felt right. "This is not proper engineering methodology," Ixeltal protested as Kira began sketching designs directly onto the workshop's holographic interfaces, her rapid-fire modifications causing the projection systems to hiccup. "Proper methodology got you 0.3% improvement in 3 centuries. Kira reminded them, not looking up from her work. "We're aiming a bit higher." "Isabella, how's that quantum field looking?" Like a straight-laced librarian at their first rock concert. "Give me 10 minutes and some of Jun's special coffee, and I'll have these particles dancing." "You cannot make quantum particles dance," one of the alien physicists shouted, That violates at least 12 fundamental principles. Someone should tell the particles that. Isabella grinned, her displays showing patterns that made several observing mathematicians need to lie down. As the day progressed, the humans' workspace increasingly resembled what the aliens could only describe as organized chaos. Tools floated in gravity-defying arrangements. Holographic diagrams covered every surface with calculations that seemed to ignore basic mathematical principles. And in one corner, a coffee maker had somehow achieved sentience and was engaging in philosophical debates with the facility's eye. How long until the prototype's ready? Raj asked, welding something that technically couldn't be welded. At this rate, Kira studied their progress, absently wiping grease on her coveralls. Give us 3 days. 3 days. Ixaltal's translator nearly shorted out. The simulation phase alone should take 2 weeks. Simulations. Jun emerged from another maintenance shaft, trailing cables that pulsed with strange energies. Where's the fun in that? Sometimes you've got to let the universe surprise you. That's not how engineering works. Maybe that's your problem, Kira suggested, catching a tool that Raj had thrown without looking. You're so focused on how things are supposed to work, you never stop to ask how they could work. As night fell on the facility, the alien staff retreated to a safe distance, leaving automated monitors to observe the humans' continued work. The last thing they heard before the doors sealed was Kira's voice. Hey, who wants to see what happens when you cross a quantum flux capacitor with an espresso machine? The resulting light show could be seen from orbit. By day 3 of the Humans Project, the Federation's advanced engineering facility had developed several new safety protocols, 2 support groups for traumatized physicists, and a betting pool that had reached galactic proportions. The aliens watched in equal parts horror and fascination as the grease monkeys defied conventional wisdom with every passing hour. Can someone explain to me? First Engineer Ixaltal demanded, watching Isabella dance through a holographic forest of quantum probability curves, how they're making such rapid progress while violating every established principle of engineering. A junior researcher, who had been documenting the humans' methods, adjusted their sensory stalks nervously. Well, sir, I've been analyzing their approach. They appear to operate on what they call intuitive physics, a combination of theoretical knowledge, practical experience, and what they refer to as vibes. Vibes, Ixaltal repeated, their crystalline form flickering in distress. They're building a revolutionary fold space engine based on vibes. Watch this, Kira called out, interrupting their discussion. She stood before the partially assembled engine, which looked like something assembled by artistic raccoons with engineering degrees. Raj hit it with the quantum resonance scanner. Raj raised what appeared to be a modified microwave oven connected to a game controller. Reading the vibes now, boss. He pointed it at the engine's core, where streams of exotic particles danced in patterns that made traditional physicists need to lie down. That's not a quantum resonance scanner, one of the alien engineers protested. That's. It is now, Jun grinned, typing commands into what looked suspiciously like a reprogrammed toaster. We found that if you reverse the polarity of a standard microwave, cross the streams with a modified game console's haptic feedback, and ask the quantum particles nicely, they'll tell you exactly what they're up to. Isabella's holographic displays erupted with data. They're right. The particle harmonics are perfectly aligned. The engine core is practically purring. Purring. Ixaltal's translator glitched. Quantum particles don't purr. These ones do, Kira said, patting the engine housing affectionately. You just have to know how to talk to them. Speaking of which, Jun, how's our AI friend doing with those calculations? Jun gestured to a corner where the sentient coffee maker was now projecting complex equations while dispensing perfectly calibrated espresso shots. Carl's been a huge help. Turns out coffee makers have a unique perspective on thermodynamics. You named the coffee maker Carl. Coffee and relativity liaison, Jun explained. He came up with it himself. He's also developed some fascinating theories about the relationship between caffeine consumption and quantum entanglement. The alien observers watched in mounting disbelief as Carl's calculations, scrawled in coffee stains and steam patterns, actually began making a bizarre kind of sense. Several theoretical physicists had already started taking notes, though they tried to be subtle about it. The really interesting part, Isabella added, manipulating quantum fields like she was conducting an orchestra, is how the fold space manifolds respond to harmonic resonance. Watch this. She hummed a few notes, and the exotic particles in the engine core began moving in sync, forming patterns that shouldn't have been possible according to at least 7 fundamental laws of physics. The aliens' monitoring equipment began registering readings that caused several devices to throw up error messages and one to simply give up and display _2_/. You're using music to manipulate quantum fields, a senior physicist asked weakly. Everything in the universe vibrates, Raj explained, adjusting something with his wrench that probably shouldn't have been adjustable. Find the right frequency, and you can make anything dance, even space-time itself. But that's not in any of the textbooks. That's because you're reading textbooks instead of listening to the universe, Kira said, making final adjustments to a component that seemed to exist in several dimensions simultaneously. Sometimes you've got to stop thinking so hard and just feel it. As if to emphasize her point, the engine core pulsed with a soft blue light, accompanied by a humming that sounded suspiciously like the opening bars of an ancient Earth song called "Never Gonna Give You Up." Did you just rick-roll the laws of physics? Chun asked, impressed. The quantum particles have good taste in music, Isabella shrugged. Who am I to judge? Ixaltal watched as their carefully constructed worldview continued to crumble. This defies all logical explanation. You cannot simply improvise with fundamental forces of nature. Actually, the junior researcher interjected, their data pad filled with observations. They're achieving results that our traditional methods never even conceived of. By approaching physics as a collaborative partner rather than a rigid framework, they're opening up possibilities we never considered. Exactly, Kira beamed. The universe isn't a set of unchangeable rules. It's more like a jazz band. Sometimes you've got to improvise, try new things, maybe throw in a solo or two. The engine's core pulsed again, this time producing a harmony that made several quantum physicists start tapping their appendages in rhythm before catching themselves. 20 credits as they actually pulled this off, one alien engineer whispered to another. 50 says they either revolutionize physics or accidentally create a new universe. Possibly both. As the day drew to a close, the prototype engine was taking final shape. It looked nothing like the elegant crystalline designs the Federation favored. Instead, it was a beautiful mess of improvised solutions, repurposed technology, and what appeared to be several pieces of modern art that had somehow become integral to its function. Tomorrow we start final calibrations, Kira announced, wiping her hands on a rag that might have once been a lab coat. Anyone want to place bets on whether we break the universe or just the laws of physics? Both, Jun suggested. Definitely both. The aliens began updating their evacuation protocols, just in case. Meanwhile, Carl the coffee maker had started writing poetry about the beauty of quantum mechanics, and nobody was quite sure whether to be impressed or terrified. Probably both. Test day arrived with all the subtlety of a supernova in a library. The Federation's test chamber, normally a temple of precise measurement and controlled conditions, had been transformed into what several alien observers described as organized chaos with a side of impending doom. Final checks, Kira called out, moving around their creation with the confidence of someone who had either mastered the laws of physics or convinced them to take a coffee break. Raj, how's the containment field? Solid as a quantum rock, Raj replied, tapping the field generator with his wrench. The device, held together with what appeared to be duct tape and optimism, hummed contentedly. The particles have agreed to behave. Mostly. Ixeltal's translator squeaked. Well, a few of them are feeling rebellious, but Isabella had a nice chat with them. Isabella looked up from her quantum field displays, which now resembled a cross between a Jackson Pollock painting and a mathematical fever dream. They just needed some encouragement, and maybe a few promises about future experiments. You negotiated with quantum particles, an alien physicist asked, their tentacles tying themselves in knots. Of course, Isabella shrugged. They're quite reasonable once you get to know them, though the ones in the upper left quadrant are a bit sassy. Jun emerged from beneath the engine's control panel, trailing cables that glowed in colors that shouldn't exist. Carl's integrated into the main systems. He's excited about the test, though he keeps trying to calculate the optimal coffee-to-spacetime ratio. The sentient coffee maker beaked proudly, displaying equations that made several theoretical physicists need to sit down. Right then, Kira clapped her hands. Everyone behind the safety barriers, except you, Carl. You're part of the team now. The alien observers retreated to their reinforced observation bunker, which had been upgraded with several new layers of protection after someone had read the humans' test parameters. Several were already updating their wills. Beginning primary sequence, Kira announced, her hands dancing over controls that seemed to rearrange themselves whenever anyone else looked at them. Raj, give me power. Channeling the spicy electrons now, boss. The engine core began to glow, emitting light in spectrums that shouldn't have existed. Quantum particles swirled in patterns that made topology experts question their career choices. Somewhere in the background, Carl started playing what sounded suspiciously like the final countdown through his steam vents. Field stability at 120% of theoretical maximum, Isabella reported cheerfully. The particles are having a party in there. That's impossible, shouted someone from the bunker. You can't exceed theoretical maximums. Tell that to the particles, Jun replied, watching as his displays showed numbers that were technically illegal in several star systems. They didn't get the memo about limits. The engine's hum rose to a crescendo, accompanied by flashes of light that seemed to bend around corners that didn't exist. The test chamber's reality sensors were displaying readings that alternated between error and full power in 3, 2, 1. The universe held its breath. Then everything happened at once. The light that filled the test chamber wasn't just light. It was what light aspired to be when it grew up. The engine core pulsed with energy that made the laws of physics file formal complaints with the universe. Power output at 300% of maximum theoretical limit. Isabella shouted over the harmonious hum of perfectly aligned quantum fields. The particles are doing the conga. In the observation bunker, the alien scientists watched in stunned silence as their instruments displayed readings that shouldn't have been possible. Several probability calculators had simply given up and were displaying humans _2_/ as their final answer. Fold space manifold stability is perfect, Jun reported, while Carl projected a series of equations that looked like abstract art. We're getting efficiency ratings that, well, the numbers have stopped making sense and started making jazz. That's it. Kira grinned, watching as their creation rewrote the laws of physics with casual disregard for tradition. She's purring now. The engine wasn't just working. It was working better than anyone, except perhaps the humans, had thought possible. It had taken the Federation's carefully documented laws of physics, folded them into paper airplanes, and thrown them out the metaphysical window. First Engineer Ixeltal approached the control station, their crystalline form shifting through colors that suggested both awe and mild existential crisis. How? Just. How? Simple, Kira said, patting the engine housing affectionately. We stopped treating physics like a strict set of rules and started treating it like a dance partner. Sometimes you lead, sometimes you follow, and sometimes you just have to improvise. But the calculations, the simulations, the centuries of established theory are all valid, Raj interrupted, adjusting something with his wrench that made the local space-time giggle. We just added a bit of human creativity to the mix. And duct tape. Never underestimate duct tape. And coffee, Carl added through his display, having achieved a level of consciousness that allowed him to not only make perfect espresso, but also contemplate the nature of quantum foam. The test concluded with readings that would keep the Federation's scientists busy for centuries. The human's engine hadn't just met their bold claims, it had exceeded them by margins that made mathematicians need to invent new numbers. "Well," Kira announced, shutting down the systems with a flourish, "I believe that settles our bet. 1 month, 1,500% improvement in efficiency, and we only broke 3 laws of physics. 4 if you count that thing with the coffee quantum entanglement, but Carl swears that was consensual." The alien engineers emerged from their bunker, their worldview thoroughly shattered, but their curiosity thoroughly piqued. The junior researcher who had been documenting the humans' methods was practically vibrating with excitement. "This changes everything," they announced, waving their data pad enthusiastically. "The implications for engineering, physics, even our understanding of the universe itself. Plus," Jun added, "we taught the security systems to play jazz. They're much happier now." Ixaltal's crystalline form had settled into a shade that suggested deep contemplation. The Federation would be honored to have humanity join the High Engineering Council, though perhaps we should establish some new safety protocols first. "Oh, definitely," Kira agreed. "Rule number 1, always keep spare duct tape handy." "Rule number 2, Isabella added, listen to the quantum particles. They usually know what they're doing." "Rule number 3, Raj chimed in, when in doubt, hit it with a wrench, but gently, with respect." "And rule number 4, Jun concluded, never underestimate the power of a properly motivated coffee maker." Carl beaked in agreement, dispensing celebratory espressos all around. As news of the human success spread across the galaxy, engineering schools began quietly updating their curricula to include courses on intuitive physics, creative problem-solving, and advanced applications of duct tape in quantum mechanics. Several universities also installed coffee makers, just in case. The grease monkeys had done more than build a revolutionary engine. They had proven that sometimes the best way to advance technology was to stop overthinking it and start feeling it. They had shown that human ingenuity, combined with a healthy disregard for impossibility, could achieve things that centuries of careful calculation had missed. And somewhere in the facility's computer systems, the security AI was teaching other machines to appreciate jazz, while Carl worked on his theory that the secret to universal harmony might just be the perfect cup of coffee. The universe, it seemed, had a sense of humor after all, and it ran on duct tape.